In every era, there is a need, a spark, an instinct that brings us together to imagine and to innovate. This hasn't changed. What's possible has. We create technology that makes our world better. Ideas that move us, empower, and connect us. But great ideas cannot thrive alone. They need to be shared, challenged, refined. Through our insight and collective curiosity, we advance and grow. New solutions, new directions, new answers. We do that here, together. This is the age of connected intelligence. Welcome to the IQ era.
It is my pleasure to be your moderator for today. My name is Ana Tavares Latibaudier. I am the Executive Director for Global Platform, which is a standards organization that focused on security of chips and devices and networks. And it works very hard to make sure that our digital future is secure. It is my pleasure to moderate a panel that is focused on pocket-sized connectivity. I have a long career in telecoms and IoT and worked for GSMA for many years before my current role. And today we have a wonderful selection of speakers that has a very different perspective on the convergence of AI, eSIM, 5G, and how all is coming together to change the way consumers and enterprises communicate, collaborate, and the new use cases that it's bringing. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage our speakers. So I'm going to start with Andy Aitken, co-founder and CEO of Honest Mobile. So I'll ask everyone to take a seat. And also Anne-Sophie Lotgering, CEO of Europe NTT Data. Greg McCall, Chief Security and Networks Officer with BT Group. And Devir Zvi, which is CEO of Romify. So I am... doesn't matter. I'm going to take brilliance, if that's okay. So it's my pleasure to let you know today that this session has been selected as part of a new GSMA initiative called Curated Networking. So at the end, you will be able to take some refreshments with our speakers and in your peers and be able to continue the conversation and ask the questions and network. So please, pay attention, but don't leave after the session. It will be just outside. So, all right. With that said, thank you very much for joining me on the discussion today. I'm very excited to talk about intelligent connectivity with you. And I'm going to start with Greg on 5G. 5G plus, BT is going ahead and really accelerating. What does that mean? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I think I think the first thing to say is building connectivity at pace is really, really critical. Connectivity is almost critical national infrastructure now, and it enables everything we do in our lives every single day. So the work that we've been doing, first of all, launching 5G and launch our 5G Plus network a little over 16 months ago. We are now provide access to more than 47 million people across the UK. And we are really, really starting to see the benefits, our customers are seeing the benefits of that network, of being able to prioritize their traffic, prioritize their services, and ensure that we can create that seamless experience across not only our 5G Plus network, but we're also building, the UK's only national fiber network. And we know that our customers spend a lot of time on Wi-Fi. So, that seamless connection between Wi-Fi and 5G Plus becomes even more critical.
Greg, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and your role so that, our audience can also
Sure.
know about it?
I'm very new in role. I've been at BT 13 years, but I started this job on the 1st of January, so 6 weeks in. But I think it's a huge honor and a privilege to work with so many brilliant technologists across BT to build connectivity, which I think is really the lifeline of the UK. And it's a huge honor, a huge privilege, and it's fantastic to be here today and to represent my team of engineers.
Great, thank you. Anne-Marie, maybe from NTT Data, do you want to first introduce NTT Data and then tell us a little bit more of what do you think 5G and 5G Plus mean for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anne-Sophie Lotkering. I work for NTT Data. So NTT Data is a fully owned subsidiary of the NTT group in Japan, and we represent over $30 billion of activity outside of Japan, so internationally. And Europe is one of those regions that contributes, of course, to our international business. There's about 20,000 employees scattered across Europe. And basically what we do is we provide our expertise to help enterprise customers decide on what's the best technology for them, going from advisory consulting all the way to enabling them to understand, what it means to secure their data, make sure also that they're able to take into consideration all the progresses that AI brings to them. But we're also a bricks and mortar company because we're the third largest data center provider in the world. So that gives you a bit of a description of who we are. We serve clients in more than 145 countries globally. So I guess for me, the question is, what is 5G and 5G Plus for enterprises? What does it represent for them? And what I would say is the following. I think in our view, 5G isn't just an additional incremental telco evolution. It's really an architecture transformation. Now, why do I say that? I say that because what matters today for enterprises is not the network itself, but actually what's on top of the network. So the applications, the security, the intelligence, and of course the business outcomes that it creates. And then last but not least, I think that if you go into the specific sphere of enterprise of private and hybrid 5G, it gives enterprises a very strategic choice between having full on-premise control and, on the other hand, performance guaranteed public network slicing.
That's awesome. Andy, you want to introduce Honest Mobile a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Andy. I'm one of the co-founders of Honest Mobile. We're a predominantly UK-focused MVNO, a little bit going on in the US, but not much at the moment. And we're really focused on trying to make sure people have the best connection available. So rather than being attached to just a single MNO in the UK, we have all three of them. We have most MNOs globally to try and give people the best connection possible. And unlike Greg, with 47 million customers, we have about 100,000, so we're still really early days. But the thing that we always hear over and over again is most consumers don't know what to do with 5G, let alone 5G Plus, and what they really want is a signal, whether that's in a car park in the middle of Wales, when they're on vacation, and just that base level connectivity. It's almost become, as you say, sort of a core utility. And so that's our focus at Honest, is trying to get that connectivity to as many people as possible in even the trickiest to connect places.
Thank you very much. Devere, do you want to introduce Roamify a little bit? And
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. I'm Devere. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Roamify. So Roamify is a travel eSIM company, and we're on two sides. We have the B2C aspect where we provide data, obviously, just to customers. Then we have a B2B aspect where we have our own API, and that's more of our business. We're more focused on B2B, and we provide mostly to customers based in the GCC, like some big travel eSIM companies there, some fairly large travel eSIM companies in Europe, and we're trying to expand it. And kind of like what Andy was saying, we're still not at the level of them, but I think it's a very interesting mix over here where we can kind of provide the consumer side and what we're seeing from the consumer side, and they can provide what's going on in the back end. In terms of 5G, kind of like what Andy was saying, customers just want it to work. They don't, and with how good 5G is now, any country they go to, they expect instant speed, 200 megabytes per second, 300 megabytes per second. Whereas 10 years ago, it was, oh, okay, if my video takes too long to load, or if my app takes too long to load, it's okay, I'm on data. But now with 5G, everyone expects the best in everywhere. So it's cool.
So I think I've heard speed, reliability, the signal, functionality. When we think about intelligent connectivity and all of the innovations that 5G has enabled, plus AI and everything that new technology has brought, what do you think, Anne-Sophie, that intelligent connectivity mean for you and for your customers?
For enterprise customers, whether of course they're in the private sector or the public sector, because we cater for both, I think flexibility is the real value of 5G. And what do I mean by flexibility? I think it's the ability to adapt the network to the business and not the other way around. Also, if you go back to what I was mentioning before, which is everything that's related to private and hybrid 5G, there we turn sovereignty, which is the theme of the moment, and I think is here to stay. It turns what was or what used to be a policy discussion into actual operational readiness, including GDPR compliance. So I'll give you a very good example. So we work with the Frankfurt Airport to provide a private 5G network. What does that enable? It enables real-time data. It enables business operations processing. And it means also a much smoother journey for the passengers that are at the airport. And when we speak to our customers, whether they're public or private, they don't ask us for 5G. They say, okay, how can you make my factory safer? How can you make my airport smarter? If they're responsible for a smart city, how do you make it more resilient? Mm-hmm. So really for us, 5G is enabling that flexibility, which is to reach the business outcomes of the different verticals that we address through the connectivity in a sovereign way.
And Sophie, for enterprise, there's always a cost factor that I think many times is even more significant than in the consumer. Do you sense that still? Or is the new functionality enabling more for the enterprise?
As I said, it's really about understanding what the total cost of ownership and the ROI next to it will be. And if you're able to demonstrate that an investment will enable your operations to be smarter, to create additional safety, to create, for example, better maintenance of or enhanced maintenance of your fleet, because you have predictive maintenance, and that enables you to not send an engineer when it's not necessary or doing that over the air, and therefore being able to recoup those initial investments, the conversation all of a sudden becomes a lot more fluid. So it's really about being able to demonstrate in ROI terms the tangible value that we would bring to enable their business versus anything else.
That makes sense. And Greg, for a national mobile operator, what does it mean?
I think everything Sophie says is 100% right. But what we all need to remember is connectivity is what everyone needs. And our ability to allow people to program the network for their needs so they're always getting the best connectivity for the services that they're running becomes even more critical. And a couple of really basic examples. Last year at Christmas time, we enabled a fair. It was a Christmas fair in Belfast, and letting the traders at that fair being able to go about their business without worrying about connectivity, but that was all enabled through our network, through a slice in our network that brought real value for them. We're also seeing in rural areas, ensuring that we're giving reach in rural areas so that local economies in the rural areas are all of a sudden building new services, new products, and enabling them to go about their businesses, stuff that we take for granted in urban areas. And a couple of years ago, we commissioned a report from Assembly that basically said there's about 230 billion pounds in the UK alone that will be enabled through the brilliant connectivity that we can deliver. So, the prize is worth going after, but ensuring that our networks are programmable, ensuring that we can deliver the services that allow our customers to differentiate on the network becomes really, really critical.
That makes sense. And Andy, Honest brings quite a different concept, right, in terms of approach to consumer connectivity. What does it mean for you, intelligent connectivity, and how do you get there?
So I think for us, intelligent connectivity almost means some of the brand names we all talk about today, not disappearing, but changing where their focus is. So like, if you're in Barcelona and you don't mind which carrier you're on, you just want your phone to work. If you're in London, I don't mind which carrier I'm on, I just want my phone to work. And so for me, the intelligence piece is around almost abstracting the layer above, the network layer, and saying, well, who's got connectivity here and how can we get it to a consumer? And the way we do that, and we are entirely consumer oriented, is actually giving people a second eSIM. And so we're asking people to pay extra for it. So coming back to the kind of cost point, we try and make it super affordable. But in those moments where someone was offline and we allow them to be connected, that willingness to pay for, I'm running late to pick the kids up, can you get them? I'm lost in the Lake District, I need to find the car. The willingness to pay in those moments is huge. Like people would pay 50 quid to send a WhatsApp. People would pay £100 to send a WhatsApp. And so it sort of just underlines how important that base level connectivity is.
That makes sense. Devere, for Roamify, you have a different type of business. I think that there are other panelists. What does intelligent connectivity mean for you, and how do you enable it?
So for us, it's just about optimizing costs based on the different networks. So based on where the user is, what's the best network there, and is it worth it to go use a cheaper network in that area? And basically doing that for every single country across 200 plus countries. To be frank, it's mostly under 70 because most people only travel to 70 major locations, but it's making sure that in every single country we're optimizing our costs properly based on the cost and how good the network is. So, yeah.
And do you use AI in order to do that, or? Well,
right now we use code, but we haven't fully integrated AI. We actually need to do that, but for now, code is getting us through, but there's definitely some better alternatives that we can start focusing on. So, yeah.
Is AI a consideration in your businesses on how you approach it, and what kind of new use cases do you thinking your customers are getting through that?
So we're looking at AI through two lenses. So we think about AI, for the network, and the network for AI. And as you would expect, you wouldn't be coming to a show like this and not talking about AI. I think we're all doing a lot in that space, ensuring that our networks, to Andy's point, my job is to make sure that wherever our customers need to use our network, it's up, it's available, it's resilient, it's secure, and it can protect the services that they want to run. And we do a pretty good job of that at EE. We've won Root Metrics 25 years in a row. If I look at the top 25 cities across the UK, they are as good as any other network anywhere in Europe. So, my job is to make sure that we can drive that, and AI plays a big role in ensuring that we are always looking at how we moderate our resources to deliver that differentiated experience where customers need it every single day.
For the enterprise?
Yeah, for the enterprise, I think it's I really like Greg's analogy because I think it's exactly the same for us. We use AI to operate our network, and then we make sure that our network is ready for AI. What I think particularly interesting is that if you look at, and for enterprises, everything that's sovereignty and private AI, it actually starts at the connectivity level, because that's where you take the decision of where your data is processed, how it's processed, where it's stored, who processes it, and who controls it. So if you look at it from that perspective, any mission-critical environment, whether you're looking at a chemical factory or an airport or a smart city, they basically need ultra-reliable, ultra-secure connectivity always on, and it's not considered as just being a feature or a commodity. I think enterprises today really consider their network as a strategic investment. And I think that's absolutely key in terms of the use cases that it enables in the private sovereign area.
That makes sense. And for you, Andy, do you see AI as a major, important step?
Yeah, I guess we think about it in two lenses too, but completely different ones. So the first one is for us as a business. So we don't have to run much of a network. I'm really pleased about that. People say, "Do you want to be an MNO?" And I'm like, absolutely not.
Don't worry, Andy. We'll spend our money for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we'll pay you. It's fine. And so we think a lot about AI for building our business. And so, for instance, our engineering team is about 70% smaller than it was 12 months ago, thanks to AI. We were thinking about hiring sort of a network operations center type team, and we've built that with AI. And then the second lens we look at it from is for consumers. So what can we do for consumers that would be great for them? And we do a lot around sort of spam protection, fraud protection. We're looking at, can we insert LLMs and AI into people's phone calls? We've all seen the note takers on Zoom and the note takers on Teams, but can we put that into traditional phone calls? And the answer is yes, you can. There's just been a great launch in the US of live translations. So there's all sorts of stuff you can do with that. And so that's where we're sort of starting to think about it.
So I'm just going to go back. And Sophie, you mentioned your customers, enterprise customers, want to see smart factories, safe factories. And are there any use cases that you start seeing today that we didn't see before that are emerging with this new technology? Are there any specific concrete examples you want to give?
Yeah, I can give one example. If I set the context, I think in the AI age, you can say that intelligence is moving closer and closer to the edge, and connectivity is what makes it safe. Connectivity is what makes it real time, and connectivity is what makes it trustworthy. If you look at some of the use cases that we have today, they're not specific not specific company. They could be related to specific industries. And for example, we work at NTT Data. We work with Catena X, you probably know, which support Europe's automotive value chains by enabling secure sovereign data sharing across the different ecosystem, which is also fully aligned with Gaia X purposes and their principles. So I think it's important to understand that we're not just looking at enabling one company or one government entity, but also enabling the sharing of data in a private and trustworthy and sovereign manner for different businesses within a sector, be it automotive or be it another. And that's something that I think might be relevant to add to this conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess eSIM has been one of the big other areas of innovation that has enabled many of your business models as well, and taken people's the ability to onboard much easier, right, for a national operator as well. Devir, do you want to talk about what eSIM means for you? Was it all that you thought it would be, and are there any things that still need to be worked out?
Yeah, I think device manufacturers have to do a better job of ensuring that people who don't know how to use an eSIM can actually use an eSIM, because it's getting better, but it's still very hard for someone just off the get-go to understand how to install an eSIM. So, but Apple's getting better on it with the one-click installation. But one thing I will say, it's a lot easier, the barriers to entry for a lot of industries, specifically the travel eSIM industry, is very has gone down a lot, right? Because anyone could just come up and start selling eSIM. So it's very interesting to kind of battle out with all the new competitors. We've seen some of the probably maybe a year and a half ago is when most eSIM companies, that was the highest amount of eSIM companies that came into the industry. Now we've slowly seen some companies aren't around anymore, but it's going to be interesting to see in the next 1 to 3 years who's able to survive the barriers to entry. So, yeah.
Greg, how do you see that? How do you see eSIM for you? Is it significant?
I think eSIM's super, super important. You know, it's our role to remove complexity and friction from our customers. And, you know, I think eSIM has evolved a lot over the last 3 years. It's a lot simpler. You know, I'm fortunate enough to change my phone fairly regularly. I use the eSIM service all the time. So I think we are definitely making it simpler, and I think that's critical for our industry. And so, yeah, you know, we embrace it. I think it helps when you've got the best network, because people can come and try it. And, you know, our customers definitely, you know, report back that they get a better experience when they come onto our network. So making that available, lowering the bar of entry is definitely something we support.
Andy, what does that mean for you? Is that the core of how you operate as well?
Yeah, so I mean, eSIMs are now 99% of what we sell across physical and, well, those two options. And that was like crazy overnight. We launched relatively late into the day of eSIMs, and like literally the next day, 50% of sales were eSIM. Like there's demand for it. I think the travel eSIM space has been amazing for showing people that they exist, and I think people maybe aren't yet aware that it's available in their domestic market as well. So I think that's kind of interesting, and I think travel eSIMs have been a really good first like showcase. But I think there is some fallout to come. Much like we've seen in the UK and fibre over the last few weeks, like there's just not space for everyone. Well, there is space for everyone, but not if they want to be profitable. So I think there'll be some interesting changes over the next few years, and consolidation and the travel arbitrage. I don't know how long that will last forever. Like at some point, the MNOs will not want to let it continue.
I think the only thing we should all pay a lot of attention as an industry to is ensuring that we keep our customers' data safe. And we need to make sure that as we embrace new technology, that we not make it easier for people to exploit our customers' data, because that trust that our customers have in us is super, super critical. And if you break that, it's gone forever.
And there was some really interesting stuff with the travel eSIM aggregators where, you know, data was in all sorts of places that was not where people were expecting it to be.
Safety of data is fundamental in terms of building trust, right, for consumers and enterprises. And when they come and engage your services, they want to make sure that their data is not being exploited or shared. And I think that's valid for eSIM, but also valid across board. So I don't know, for enterprise customer, the way you protect your data, your customers' data, I would assume it's one of their number one priorities. No?
No, absolutely. I think it's the number one priority, but it's also where, as a partner, as a provider, we have a responsibility to make sure that, first of all, clients are comfortable with the access that they provide to their data to us. They're comfortable with the access also that they provide to their own employees or their wider partner set, and they're also comfortable with the way that the data is transited across the networks. And as I was saying, it's really about enabling those rule setting and making sure that there's a good understanding of where the data is stored, who accesses it, what are the rules that are being put in place, and in case there is any threat, how do you actually remediate and respond to it? And I think the fact that in NTT Data we have a very comprehensive set of experts in cybersecurity, but also across the security end-to-end of the network, sort of brings that first level trust. Now it's up to us to make sure that that trust continues on with our clients, not only through the life cycle of their contracts, but also, through, in a much, much wider time than that. Absolutely.
Yes. I guess as someone that works for a standards body, they're focused in security, that this is quite keen. It's something that I'm really proud to say that I've loved, and I don't know how much you know about how Global Platform actually protects your network keys in a UICC and your network keys. But I think in the future, is eSIM also providing other opportunities and business models and things that you think we haven't thought before, or everything it enables is already here?
I'm
Andy?
100% confident that everything it enables is not here, but I can't tell you what the next thing will be. I mean, there's a whole movement, certainly in the UK and the US, for sort of embedded connectivity, and the fintech players starting to launch telcos, and I think that all comes off the back of eSIMs. Like Revolut's product is eSIM only. Nobody wants to be, not many new entrants want to be in the distribution business of sending out SIM cards. So I think there's more and more to come.
And the veer for travel eSIM, do you see that I don't know, that in the future every hotel chain and cruise ship and airline is going to have their own travel eSIM readily available? Is there other innovations you think are going to be out there?
So I think a few years ago, a lot of airlines were pitched for a travel eSIM or even integrated a travel eSIM, but no one really pushed it because eSIMs were still new. But I think as customers, as it becomes, just like drinking water, everyone has an eSIM, it's a lot easier for, a big airline to say, okay, you know what, let's have a team of 5 or 6 developers and then 10 marketers, and let's actually push this out. Whereas in 2022, 2023, even if you made a partnership, maybe you make the partnership and then they kind of shelf the project. Okay, you made a LinkedIn post, it was great that everything was partnered with, but how much revenue is really generated from that product, right? So I think as consumers start using eSIMs, and it goes from like, maybe 20% of people use eSIMs to like Andy's saying, like 90% or more, then it's going to be a lot easier for marketing teams and engineering teams to put a lot more effort into it. So yeah, I think in the next few years, you're going to see a lot more hotels, a lot more airlines actually not only integrating, but also really pushing the project. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a slightly different view, to be honest. I think customers want simplicity. And if you're getting what you want from your network, and it's at a price that you think is reasonable, do you want to go through the hassle of constantly changing the SIM and using, different things for different things? I'm not sure. If you look in the UK market, the mobile market, churn's actually really, really low. And people really only churn because they're not getting the service they expect. And therefore, I'm not convinced you're going to get a massive balloon of everyone offering an eSIM service. Airlines, travel. I just can't see that happening.
What do you think it's next, Greg, then, in terms of what's the next wave of innovation?
If you walk around here, everyone says it's 6G, don't they? So,
is it 6G?
Well, I think the important thing, or certainly for our industry, is the capital investment that we've put into our 5G network, into our fiber network. We need to make sure that we monetize the promise of 5G before we start thinking too much about the next G. And I think there was a loss of promise on 5G. I'm not sure we've realized the real benefits of 5G yet. And as an industry, I think we've got to work harder to demonstrate to our customers the power of connectivity, the power of that programmability, and ensuring that we can deliver that promise that 5G promised 3 or 4 years ago when we were all here.
And Sophie, is it 6G, or do you also agree that we still have to monetize 5G and that there's still a lot to be done? What's next?
What's next? Well, I think, to be honest, it depends really which type of segment you're looking at. I think there's still a lot of work that we can do with our enterprises and with public sector just to make sure that there's a good understanding of what 5G can bring and what specifically private and hybrid 5G can bring to a client. But those discussions are very much ongoing and have matured. And therefore, I think we're not maybe as behind the curve, as Greg would say, on the consumer side about being able to explain and monetize the technology itself or the connectivity itself. But there's still definitely room to improve. I think for me, what will happen next, but I think it's the same for everything, is around quantum computing. That's where I see the next sort of big and it's already happening, around and how is the industry going to be responding to quantum computing and the threats that that create in turn. So if I were to pick one, I would say that's probably quantum computing. Yeah.
Greg, if you had to pick one, which one would it be exactly?
Yeah, I think quantum is a huge opportunity and a huge threat for our industry. And, you know, when is the key thing? I'm not sure any of us can really predict exactly when it's going to be, but it's definitely going to happen, and that will definitely disrupt, I hope, in a very good way. And, you know, once again in BT, you know, we've got a fairly large research division that is doing some real bleeding edge research in quantum, which is super, super exciting. So, you know, let's hope it happens sooner and we can all use that as an opportunity to monetize the significant investments we put in our networks.
I think we started by saying AI for networks and networks for AI. Is there also AI for security and security for AI, right?
Yeah, and we've seen that today already. You know, we've seen that today, and
kind of going both ways, because if you ally AI with quantum, it could be quite
and you know, I mean, just to give you a soundbite, you know, we worked with NCSC, which is the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK, and you know, we've blocked more than 1 billion attempts to go to miscellaneous websites. A lot of that is using AI, machine learning, and intelligence in our network, because that's the other thing I think we underestimate in our industry. The amount of data and intelligence we've got in our networks can really be, you know, if used appropriately, can be put to real good causes on keeping our customers protected, safe, and secure. Because fundamentally, that is the most important thing that we need to do, is connect customers and ensure that they're always safe and secure.
That makes sense. Andy, what do you think is next? What's the next innovation out there that you think is going to be important?
I think the next big thing that's going to make a huge impact on consumers is probably like direct-to-cell connectivity for satellite connectivity. And that's for those, I don't think we're ready for 6G yet, but it's for those people who don't even have 5G or 4G. You know, we say in the UK that we have 99% population coverage, 99.8% population coverage, but that still leaves hundreds of thousands of people disconnected. And, you know, the keynote this morning was that, you know, there's 3.7 billion people across the globe who aren't online on mobile devices. And so I think, you know, getting connectivity to those people, getting them to the final people in each developed market, will make a huge impact, because it's really hard to live your life without a phone. And so I think getting to like truly ubiquitous coverage will make a really marked difference. And that will happen in the next decade.
Yeah. Zavir, what do you think is next?
Yeah, so in terms of kind of like what Greg was saying about churn, I don't think like hotels and all these local companies, whatever, integrate an eSIM, because like you're saying, it's not worth the investment. But for travel, I think, and I hope, obviously, for the travel industry, we want to grow the travel eSIM space as big as possible. So I hope, and our prediction is for all the different travel providers, at least the big ones, to adopt eSIMs. One thing I'd actually ask the panel is, if churn gets to a point where, you know, churn doubles or triples or quadruples, are you going to start looking at ways to make it harder to switch? Like, for example, in Canada, like Romify is based in Canada, so in Canada or the US, almost every single phone is a lease, right? So you have to sign the contract for 24 months. So what ends up happening is, even if your connection sucks, or, you know, this other company offers you a way better deal, you can't really do anything because you're stuck. So do you think if churn, like I said, like doubles, triples, quadruples, do you think, even though eSIM is so easy, because it's so easy to switch, you'll go into the leasing phones business as well? At least in Europe, because I know in Europe it's not as big. So,
as I said earlier, I think you know, my job certainly at BT is to ensure that I build the best networks, whether that be fixed, Wi-Fi, or mobile. And we do a pretty good job of that at BT. We've always got room for improvement, and we're always, you know, searching to do even more. But I truly believe that if people are happy with the connectivity they get, the need to churn is actually quite low because it is a hassle.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll ever, we're very regulated in the UK. I don't think our regulator will ever allow us to put barriers up, and nor would we want to. You know, as MNOs, that's not the game we're in. We want to build great networks for our customers to connect so that they can unlock the potential. You know, 230 billion pounds is a lot of money, and if we can give people connectivity and unlock that, the UK economy will thrive, and that's good for all of us. So that's what we want to do.
So a couple of years ago, intelligent connectivity was kind of very aligned with sustainability, at least in Mobile Congress 2020, maybe 3 or 4. Do you think that we've realized the opportunity of sustainability? Is there a business case? Did 5G actually deliver it? Do companies even care and consumers even care about it anymore?
Shall I answer
Maybe
the
on the
question first?
maybe on the
Well, I
the
think
enterprise.
companies definitely care. I think we care so much that we're actually really trying and enabling everything we can to make sure that from a climate perspective, I would say from a diversity perspective, but also from a wider sustainability perspective, we're addressing that for our customers, but also trying and understanding how enabling their business in a smarter way can also enable them to be more sustainable. There's one point across this group that we haven't mentioned at all, which I think is important to bring to the table. Every digital ambition in the future, whatever it will be, will always ask itself the question, will connectivity actually support it? And when you look at where we are in the next decade, I think we really need to see how we can assess a future key bottleneck, which is already happening today, which is the electronic bottlenecks. How we're going to be addressing the masses and masses of demand of electricity that there will be. And I think one way of looking at it is through exploring different means of technology, and that's one of the things that we're doing at NTT Data through IOWN, which is intelligent optical and wireless connectivity, which enables you with less and less electricity to actually have a throughput that's much, much higher, and therefore enabling a lesser consumption of electricity. And this is something that I think is worthwhile bringing to this panel, because it may not be about client churn, but it's about being able to sustain the demand for connectivity, whether it's 5G or other, in a way that's less impactful to the environment.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, sustainability is absolutely front and center of our manifesto, and we all need to pay special attention. If there's one good thing we got through the pandemic, when energy prices came up, I think our whole industry woke up and said, you know what, we're going to have to save on energy, because the best energy is the energy you don't consume. So, that has absolutely driven it. As an industry now, we used to beam out every single carrier all day, every day. We now use AI to tune our networks so that we make it more efficient. So we only beam out carriers when customers need it. We're doing the same in our core now as well with what we use, the Intel chips. So there's a lot we're doing there, and I think sustainability is really, really important. It's important. I always say I think we are the last generation of technologists that can really make a difference to the planet we live on. And if we don't react now, it'll be too late. So it's super, super important.
Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge consumer demand. Not everyone. We've been net zero since sort of inception, which is the great thing about being fundamentally a software company. We've been a B Corp, and customers really resonate with that. I have my fanboy moments about certain things MNOs do. Like, I think the way China's gone about co-constructing their physical standalone network is really cool. Rather than building 2 physical networks, they built 1 physical network, and that just seems like a no-brainer from a sustainability perspective. There will be ups and downs of that, of course. And so I think that's really cool. I think the way we can use AI to optimize networks and reduce energy is fantastic. And that's probably maybe the one bit where I get jealous that I don't have a bunch of infrastructure to optimize. But apart from that, I'm okay. But yeah, I think sustainability is only going to continue to grow in focus through every political cycle, even if it's not at its peak right now.
Devere, I mean, we don't need the 10 physical SIM cards anymore, so...
Yeah, I think it's very important. To be frank, I don't know how much plastic this little amount of plastic, how much negative that does to the environment. I think you know, the MNOs and the energy they use does a much worse or better. That's the lever there is much more important, because obviously we want eSIMs, and eSIMs are much more sustainable than SIMs, et cetera, but I think the real impact on the environment is electricity use, right? So, yeah.
So I was going to ask everyone to think about one word about what intelligent connectivity, what do you think it's going to be next year at Mobile Congress? So if 6G is this year, what's next year?
You can start this way.
Devere, do you want to start? I've started with Anne-Sophie every time, so...
7G. No.
That was going to be my line.
Well, to be frank, I'm not too sure. Maybe we'll have new ways to integrate AI, kind of where every single MNO will be forced to integrate AI because it's going to become super competitive. Whereas now they're starting, but maybe next year every MNO has to. But I'm not sure. Not sure, to be frank.
AI. Andy?
I think, unfortunately, the outfall of AI, or the downfall of AI.
The downfall of AI. Greg, what do you think?
You said one word, so I'll say agentic. Agentic.
Agentic.
I've had all this time to think, and I haven't come up with one word, which is really ridiculous. I actually probably think sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Yeah.
Very good. So I'd like to thank all of you for bearing with me in the conversation and for answering all my questions. And I would love to ask everyone to remain and experiment this curated networking. So we will step outside, we'll have some refreshments, you'll be able to make any questions and network with our panelists, continue the conversation, and maybe perhaps tell me what's your one word of what do you think next year is going to be about. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.